there has been floods. And that this thing we call the built environment has been unbuilt.
I don't think urban planning and design is a one-person activity.
Okay.
Or is it maybe a company deciding to implement plans? It requires coordination.
People in positions of authority are the real urban planners. Even those who succeeded to build their homes, why are they getting auctioned en masse?
Housing is also very capital intensive. So whatever financial model you choose to provide that housing will determine whether it succeeds or not.
Yes.
Who can be trusted to hold my money that will provide a home for me? If the government changes after 10 years, will I
The
still
situation will change.
Will it still change? Because again, the politics behind it makes it a bit...
It's a difficult conversation.
It's a very difficult conversation.
But I think it's a conversation we should have.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, welcome to Mjengo Podcast, where we sit and discuss great ideas that will inform great living. My name is Brenda Ngoya. I'm an urban designer. I'm also a blogger. I write advocating for SDG 11, that is sustainable cities and communities. And today I have great co-host here, that is David and Brenda. They will introduce themselves.
So thank you very much for the introduction, Brenda. My name is David Nahinga. I'm a quantity surveyor by profession. I build houses. I'm also a thinker, and I try to resolve ideas that can help you live a great life by applying those ideas. And I'm glad to be here with the two Brendas, an architect, an urban planner. And so welcome to Mjengo Podcast. Karibu.
Asante. My name is Brenda Nyawara. I'm an architect and urban designer. I am the Vice President, Kenya College of Interior Design, where we train the next generation in the built environment. I'm also the Honorary Secretary, Architectural Association of Kenya, and by extension, I'm also in the East Africa Institute of Architects Council and also the Commonwealth Association of Architects Council. Previously, I served in the Urban Planning Technical Committee for Nairobi City County, where we oversaw the approval of buildings in the city. And so this discussion, I feel, is very timely, and I'm excited for what you're going to discuss.
Perfect.
Okay, today's topic is the state of build industry in Kenya right now. And we are just going to have a discussion and see the current trends and maybe discuss the future, whatever ideas that comes as we go. Yeah.
So in my view, if you were to ask me what is the state of the built environment in Kenya, I would start with the immediate things that are happening, because you can only live in the present. So the most immediate thing that has just happened is that there has been floods. And that this thing we call the built environment has been unbuilt. Nature has shown us that really whatever you built, I think you made a mistake. So we are coming from a point where people who built houses in certain places are experiencing floods. We are sorry there's been loss of life, but we believe that the only thing that can take us out of that mess are great ideas, so that we can build back better, so that we can respect nature, so that we can anticipate challenges that come when the weather is when it's doing its thing. So I think that is the first state of the built environment, is that all professions have reached a point of failure. If you designed a house, it's an honest opinion. If you designed a house that was on a riparian land, then you have your answer. Nature has done the marking, and you have the testimony from the people. So the man who built on the riparian land and the man who built in the slum, they have their answer from nature. Nature has done the marking, but now it's time to go back and build back better. So that's the state that we are in. One state. Maybe what do you think? What do you think is the state of this environment?
I would also say it's a very fast-growing environment. If you look at Nairobi, almost every street has a building under construction. And you'd wonder who is constructing, why are they constructing, and what are they putting up? And also, are they looking around? Are they thinking for the future, or it's just going to be the normal building projects that we have? So I would wonder, we are growing very fast, but then to which direction are we growing?
We might be growing in the wrong direction.
In the wrong direction, yes.
Okay.
Maybe I'll bring the urban planning perspective. The state of built environment industry, at some point I feel like it relies majorly on poor urban planning, especially in Kenya. If you're not able to get urban planning right, I don't think anything else we can get it right. Yeah.
So does it mean that the independent actors are doing this thing? We are building a tower of Babylon, and at some point we are going to say, you guys, we are not communicating. Because I built a road to nowhere, or a railway to nowhere, as they used to say, and you built a tower that needs to be demolished to give way to this road that guy, the road engineer, began building. So are you saying the state of the built environment is like mass confusion? Don't we have pockets of order in some places? Because I'm sure the urban profession has not planned the whole of Kenya. So are you saying that whatever we do from today is confusion?
If you look back at history, the last master plan that was implemented, I think it was in 1978. After that, we've just been developing good plans without implementing them. That was when they decided Nairobi will be a railway city.
Okay.
But for now, I think one of my lecturers kept saying that in Kenya we don't actually practice urban planning. What we do is we create beautiful documents and we store them and beautifully. And trust me, if you speak to urban planners and built environment professions, you'll get they're so brilliant. They have good ideas.
Okay.
Why is it that these ideas we don't get to see it being taken into action?
If I may ask,
Yeah.
if I'm in the village, by definition, I'm not in an urban space. Why do I need urban planners? Does it mean that everything I do in the village is planless?
No,
Because now we have not defined my village as an urban space.
Yeah.
Now, let me put it another way. If I plan my 1 acre properly, and my neighbor plans her 1 acre properly, are we not going to have a general sense of order, even if we all become urbanites, just by virtue of the fact that we become more prosperous, because the plan is working? Because everybody that is building a tower in Nairobi, for example, believes that this space that I own deserves a tower. One says it should be 30 floors high. The other one says, I think I need a church. Another one says I need to cut the trees. The trees are going. The other one says, no, let me record you as you are cutting the trees, because I think the trees should stay. So are we saying that if we rent to urban planners, we will find solutions to our problems? As cities, do they emerge, or are they planned, or are they made? Do they emerge? Do we go back to 1948? Or do we say, okay, now that we have this?
Okay, in my opinion, I don't think urban planning and design is a one-person activity.
Okay.
Or is it maybe a company deciding to implement plans? It requires coordination. It requires coordination not only from urban planning profession, also an architect, a QS. They need to sit down and think, how is my actions going to affect our cities? And we can't only talk about the professionals. We also need to involve the public, because they actually know what they want that place to look like. So I think we lack a bit of coordination. We need to find a way where we can coordinate our ideas and see how we can move forward.
But also, I think the information may be lacking. You may have professionals who have their, I would call, their enclosed knowledge, and they don't work together. And then the knowledge also doesn't get out to the mwananchi. So you have a lot of knowledge in universities, and a lot of research has been done. Like, for example, if, let's say, in the master's department, you are in, look at the thesis is done under urban planning, revitalization. There's so much knowledge and so many solutions that don't get to go out to the actual implementers. Neither do they get out to the mwananchi who now has to deal with the problems but doesn't know that there's a solution somewhere. So the knowledge is not out.
I think you bring up a very good topic, because on my personal experience, I think I have to introduce when I say I'm an urban planner or urban designer, every time, anywhere, I have to explain further what do I do. So I think, I don't know if it's ignorant or we urban planners and designers, we are not advocating for ourselves very well so that people can see and know that we exist and this is what needs to be done.
Okay. But suppose there is total knowledge and people know you exist, it doesn't still solve the problem. I know you exist. I'm still facing urban. I'm being carried away by a flood. I know you exist.
The reason I'm saying that is a lot of projects you get, there is no involvement of urban planners. And I think urban planning goes wide. I think urban planners can be involved in any, be it transport, be it water, be it space design. They need to be there. So they are not involved. So my assumption is maybe they don't know what's their role there.
Okay. So I think if you ask me on that side of urban planning, so the thing is this: a person who has legitimate authority tends to have more power about how public spaces should be, for example. And so because all of you people, including urban planners, voted for me, I'm able to stand on this podium and say, I think we need this railway to go south. So basically, does it mean that people in positions of authority are the real urban planners?
No.
Because
just because they're making the decisions doesn't make them the urban planners.
But everyone has an opinion.
But
it is the people with decisions who count. So are we saying that all leaders are now our de facto urban planners?
No, not at all.
And therefore,
at some point, self-appointed urban planners. But there's an idea I had brought up before, is maybe we try and make advocate for maybe urban planners to get into position of influence, or educate our implementers, which in assumption is politician. The need of urban planning, maybe that will help us move forward.
So let me bring another angle. So we have the Chinese, they come into Kenya and they look at this thing as a blank slate. They're like, these buildings are one level, ground plus one, ground plus two. And what do? They don't go first to the urban planning department. They form an association. Chinese Property Developers Association. And then they say, we as developers, we've decided this zone, we are going 30 floors. And we are working from this time to this time. So the residents carry placards. The urban planner says, no, you need to elect us into positions of authority. But who elected the Chinese into positions of authority? They are self-elected, isn't it? And they are shaping the urban space. Because if you come back in 10 years, the conversation will be China, we, Wuxi, and the other one. That will be the conversation. Because then the man who creates the highway says that there are 3 lights. Red means this. The man who operates like a fox does not dictate which lights are going to be on this new highway, because all you need are shortcuts. You need to move from Langata to town. You take a shortcut through Bagadi and you're in town. Why do you need traffic lights? So are we saying that the industry is in chaos because urban planners are disorganized? Because they have an association. The urban planners, do they have an association?
Yes,
correct me if I'm wrong. They have several associations.
And a regulatory body.
And they have a regulatory body. And every building that we take for approval, I'm a builder, I'm a contractor, it passes through the hands of an urban planner.
I feel like you're directing all these problems
It is
to urban
the state of
planners.
the industry.
But yes, but at some point, I
Yeah.
feel like we are all involved.
We are all involved.
At some
including-
point.
But all includes
Because
the Chinese.
yes, because an architect, why are you proposing 30 levels building in a zone? You know that it's not.
I mean, the 30 floors was specified in the zoning guidelines by
Actually,
urban
no.
planning.
The zoning guidelines that doesn't have 30 plus.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's say, for example, in Nairobi, a lot of the building approvals, majority of the capacity of the staff there are urban planners. So you are assuming that whatever is coming out has passed through the hands
Consensus.
Yeah,
of several
It's
urban
agreed.
planners agreed upon,
agreed.
right? So if it's, and then just by the term,
Yeah.
if there's an issue in an urban area, the blame goes to the guy who's responsible for it, which is the urban planner.
So we don't need advocacy because if everybody says urban planners, it does not solve the problem.
Yes,
Because the
that's-
Chinese will still erect his crane and he'll still do the 30 floors. And when you show up, he'll tell you, this is the approval from the urban planners.
What I'm thinking is, as much as you're saying this plan goes through urban planners, I think the urban planners who are in that position to approve those buildings, I think maybe they need to
Change their ways.
yes
Let me stop. Okay.
to be honest and identify problems way before it gets to place.
Interesting. So that is on the urban planning side. So the other thing that is affecting our industry, when you buy a newspaper today and you flip the pages, before you get to the crossword or the sports section, you find these 6 to 7 pages of people getting auctioned. So assume we were bulb makers. And every time we go and read the news of the day, we find that all the bulbs that we made are actually getting auctioned or they are failing. It is not a good look. So why are we seeing that even those who succeeded to build their homes, why are they getting auctioned en masse? Is it a design problem? Is it an economy problem? Because this is what we call the built environment. Are these houses getting auctioned with their urban plans and their playgrounds and their homes and their gated communities? Everyone is falling on the hammer is hitting everyone, So that it is not a good look, okay? And most of these houses are in urban spaces. So is it a financing problem? Is it failure of the markets? Because if you're building houses for people, the intention is that they live a good life from the time they occupy the house to the time they retire or they move on to another space. The objective always will be that people live a good life in these spaces, even as you earn your fees, isn't it? That they don't also drown in floods. So why are we seeing this other counterpart problem? Because if we were told that 100 houses have been auctioned and you are told that 100 families have drowned in their houses, what is the difference in the quality of the problem? They are both homeless. One has been made homeless by the financial system. The other one has been made homeless by the forces of nature. So it's a big problem. And now the question then to ask is this. The new houses that we are building and we are encouraging people to take them up. Are we seeing, I always say that when you see a small thing happening now, it is a prophecy of the same thing happening at a bigger scale tomorrow. Like if you see someone stealing one maize cob from a farm, one chicken from a farm, obviously if you expand the farm, you expect he'll come to steal with a pickup if you do not correct. Yes, if you don't stop it. So are we saying that now that we are seeing 100 houses auction per day, now that our target is to do maybe 10,000 houses every so often for people and call them affordable, does it mean at some point you are going to see a scenario where there is now a real housing bubble where people are getting auctioned in mass. Because that's the real flood.
I think when you say being auctioned off, I know economy is a huge factor, which means these people could not afford their houses
From the beginning.
From the beginning. And so when you say affordable housing, then why couldn't you provide affordable housing before? And why would you say now you're going to provide affordable housing? And what makes people believe that after 10 years, their house would not be auctioned off? Will it be affordable still to the mwananchi after 10 years? Or will it reach a point where now they can no longer live there, now they're homeless? Of course, it's a question because 100 per day, that's not...
because it is not, if you buy a newspaper, you expect to see a house you can afford to buy.
To buy for sale, right?
Not a house that you could afford to buy,
but now can't.
But you realize you actually made a good decision not to have bought.
Yeah.
Because if your friend is getting shaved, what is that thing they normally say? Ukiona mwenzako amelewa, tia maji kichwa, wembe, what do they say? So the point is, now, I see this as a design problem. The reason I see it as a design problem is because that most of us who grew up in homes, in families in Africa, in Kenya, even in rural Kenya, okay, we were living in homes that were abundant in resources. Like I was not homeless in my father's house. And most fathers left property to most of us. And then you are told that if you keep a chicken there in the village, we will tax that chicken as you pay this mortgage on 22nd floor in Nyayo, in Jogoo Road, on a house that is as wide as a shipping container, 2.4 meters. So am I on the right to say that the professions are failing at a large scale? Because if the affordable housing is at a large scale, and that the unaffordability and sustainability is also not making sense, don't you see we are creating a great failure point? A point whereby we will say, okay, fine. Because if this thing, the only thing that is sustaining it is the hype and the speeches, because it doesn't need to be sustained by hype and speeches. It needs to be sustained by my intrinsic belief that if I'm making this informed choice, again, the tagline of our podcast, if I'm making this informed choice and I start paying this mortgage on day one, I will not experience a flood, the power will not fail so that I can't get to the 22nd floor, or if, and that I will not be auctioned because my economics has failed. So I think that is another, because everyone is getting taxed because of this, we can't discuss the state of the built environment without mentioning the general direction that the industry is being moved towards.
It's true. And housing is also very capital intensive. So whatever financial model you choose to provide that housing will determine whether it succeeds or not. So if someone had once mentioned, you can't tax people into owning houses. It's almost like an irony. How does it cost me more now when I'm homeless for me to own a house in the future? Will that money come back? And who can be trusted to hold my money that will provide a home for me? And at the same time, we have a culture in Kenya of I work hard and I build my own home. I don't need the assistance of the government. So suppose I decide to go that direction because maybe I don't, as an individual, maybe I don't trust the government to provide that for me in the way I want to, in the location I want to, So who is entrusted to do that? And what's the assurance that if the government changes after 10 years, will it still change? Because again, the politics behind it makes it a bit...
It's a difficult conversation.
It's a very difficult conversation.
But I think it's a conversation we should have. Because you see, if I make the wrong choice now, and it's going to impact my life in 10 years. For example, if something happens to me on year 9, and I've just signed up for this house, what happens to my children? Do they suddenly start also paying the mortgage? Or who guarantees my... Okay, if you are guaranteeing my payment or my ownership of the house, and I fall sick, if you start paying for my mortgage with your money, then who pays for yours? You understand? Because we can't create a resource out of thin air. We will be defying the laws of physics. So I think it's a rich space in the built environment where we professionals can play a role. We can add our voice to it and tell people that, look, of course, the word affordable is relative. You know, you might have afforded a cake in the morning, and I could only afford a mandazi. And you might have afforded maybe just maybe you are fasting. So at the end of the day, the word affordable is just like saying, it's a group word. It's a group word like saying cats. Cats includes lions and cats and domestic cats and many other animals. So I think we should have renamed the whole thing differently. Because when you say affordable housing, everybody is looking at it from the lens of what they can afford.
Yeah.
What about, sometimes we talk about low cost building materials.
Okay.
And by low cost, it's also relative because there's the standard amount of what it will cost you per square meter to build. Then now low cost is trying to lower the price. So would that be a better term?
A better term would be government. It should have the name government because it's only government which understands what it's doing. Okay, so the name should include the word government. Okay, so government, social, housing. Because then when you include the word social, you're saying it's a safety net.
And there's equity there.
And there's equity. And you're trying to even the score.
Yeah.
So that the guy who is not able to survive or the guy who... So it's more of we're trying to rescue these guys who are living a bad life. So it should be government social housing, not affordable housing. Because even the government cannot afford some people. Let's be honest. A government that can't collect, let's say, garbage, how will it afford to host?
I'm just hoping this affordable housing project that doesn't come to look like there's a project called Pretty Goy that they ended up demolishing
the houses because they hosted now these families that started breaking down.
Yes.
So let me bring another topic called the human scale. So when you build an apartment and you go beyond the 4th floor, let's say the 6th floor, and you have a child, let's say you've sent a child to the shop and you want to tell the child, you want to change the shopping list. So you had sent the child kiberiti, mkate moja, na mandazi, but you want to change the shopping list and include milk. So human voice, the natural human voice, from the 5th floor, you will not be able to change that voice unless you calm down and chase the girl to the shopkeeper and hope that you can intervene in the transaction before there is trade. So it means that beyond the 5th floor, vertically, the human scale breaks down. Okay? So what happens is we are doing a size of a shipping container house on the 22nd floor. So people will feel isolated in these houses. People will start having mental health issues that we see today. I think we should multiply it by the number of floors. 22 times worse. Because of course, if there's power failure and you're at the ground floor and you need to go to the 22nd floor, you'll be cursing all your way up. So, of course, the architect will say as a design intervention, let's add a cursing room. On the 7th floor.
The middle way let out the steam.
On the 7th floor. That's the architect designing, right?
Yeah.
Let's add a cursing floor. I think we need a whole floor where you
just pause.
Hapo sasa you just curse
and then continue.
Of course, if the architect is religious, they'll say, let's the 7th floor be a prayer room. You have to cancel this power blackout, okay? But what I'm trying to say is that these affordable houses are not built at a human scale.
That's true.
And then the idea is that we do not have land. The only thing we can build, the only way we can build is going up. Now, Israel the country. So we have Savo West and Savo East. Separated by this Nairobi-Mombasa highway. When you combine the land mass, the area occupied by the two servos, you can fit Israel there.
Okay.
Like if you take the area that Israel occupies as a nation, and you take the two servos, you can actually fit
The country there.
the country there. And then also when you take the total land in Kenya and you compare with the population, there is no shortage of land in Kenya.
I hear what you mean, but you've brought up two issues. Let me
Yes.
just go back to the one where you're talking about 22 floors.
Yes.
Now you see a situation where the kind of housing you're providing or proposing is going to change the lifestyle of the human being living in them. Now you no longer have children running outside to play. 22 floors, there's no surveillance now on the child. They have to play somewhere near you. And then what you're saying about the densification, would you want the entire country to be fully packed with houses, spots?
No.
Wouldn't you want to also, another option, economically use land where you have housing going up? Let's say there was a guy who designed a mile-high city over 100 years ago, Louis Kahn. So imagine, Le Corbusier. So you have the housing, apartment buildings going up 100 floors, but then you have 100 acres of green space around it.
Okay.
So you're compensating, but not using all the green land to put spots of everyone has their house. And you need the space for agriculture as well,
Okay.
for infrastructure. We all can't spread out Kenya.
But think of it in another way. We have urban planners, and we have said that the quality of the problems we are trying to solve are mediocre. That means we are not using our knowledge properly. If you go to China, you need to erect a building that has, or a train that is going through a zone where there is no oxygen. Now that's a real engineering problem.
Yes.
It begins to tickle the engineering mind. It's like, okay, what was that formula? Now the urban planners we have are carrying placards alongside the people who are saying, why are you demolishing our houses? It means the quality of the problem that we are applying ourselves to solve is low. Okay? Now let's come back. Let's come back to the issue of green. Let's come back to the issue of green. You see how much green space now look, even the little green that we have, you see, that argument would have been valid if the little green spaces we have, we are doing everything to protect. So how much cabro is inside Uhuru Park?
Oh, now it's even increased.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is a tree that is outside the nation center that was pruned mercilessly. Everybody knows it. Because there were these birds called the marabou stork that were inhabiting that space. And when you go to Luanda, the town in Vihiga County, the trees on either side of a road in Luanda town are kissing each other. So how are we not preventing the trees in Luanda from kissing? And we are pruning this one. You remember that quote by Martin Luther that injustice anywhere is a threat? Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Yes.
So that means that we do not have a coherent idealization. We do not have a coherent understanding of the place of people, trees, green spaces, and even roads in our society.
It's true, and that's why we had the floods, because we didn't respect where nature was supposed to be left.
Evaporation is our the drainage plan for Nairobi, for example, is
the water evaporates the next day.
Yeah. So now the thing I'm trying to say is this. If we maintain the human scale, we will still have the green spaces.
But I'll ask, our density is also growing very fast.
Okay.
So that human scale of 4 stories is almost a luxury now.
There's an assumption you've made that people are not dying.
No, people are moving to cities,
People are also
actually.
moving to cities.
I think it is a wrong move to move to cities.
It is, but it's already
It is a wrong
happening.
move because you are educated in the village. You are put into this school system. Your father was keeping camels and sustaining you. You are having stories every evening. Your child was growing up listening to your grandfather tell stories about the past. Our grandparents were the libraries of the past and custodians of the present. And they would tell you, that uncle of yours has run into headwinds. And you know now instinctively from the stories, I should not do this and this, because if I do this and this. So now we've broken up that society.
Yeah.
And now we
are
are all in the city.
Yeah.
And now when we are in the cities, we are pretending that we are running out of urban green space. You left 10 acres.
At home.
You left 10 acres in the village.
But your livelihood is in the city.
You've moved your livelihood to the city and abandoned another one in there. You are a prodigal child. It's the prodigal child story, where you're eating with pigs in the city.
Yet you had a home.
Yes, you had abandoned in the village. Because look, where are all the bananas coming? There's a guy in traffic in Nairobi showing up with a ripe banana every day. He has no farm.
Yeah.
What is the breaking news? That they are putting this thing that ripens bananas faster.
Okay, yeah.
But the guy who's showing up with the banana, who you even know his name, you know his name, has no farm.
Yeah.
So he's coming from the green space we abandoned. So before we cry that there's a shortage of green spaces, can we just have a road trip to our villages and see how much green spaces?
Yeah, we also need it in the city.
Actually, I think it's the cool thing to be in the city. Somebody living in the village is not considered. Yeah, is a mshamba. So how we've sell out the idea of being at back at home, mshamba is.
So there was this idea. There was an idea that in a university where architects are trained, an architect should at least 1 year. An architect should, 1 month should operate from a wheelchair.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you have a 6-year course, one year you have to operate a wheelchair, so that when you go to design houses for your clients, you should be able to think about accessibility. Then for engineers, it was that you should actually own a bicycle, so that when you design urban spaces, you make sure you provide
enough
and walking spaces and a bicycle lane that doesn't end on a billboard. Because the real reason why we cut these trees is because they were blocking billboards, not because the marabou stock was doing anything. But this marabou stock has been there since independence.
Since before
other than Karumaindo Bar, which was there since independence. The only other thing that was there since independence is that marabou stock.
Flooding, the recent flooding that has just ceased. Maybe we can touch on the effects and on how it has exposed the decades of poor urban planning that has been experienced, especially in Nairobi. And maybe we can also talk about the eviction, the government using the flooding as a point of evicting the people who stay in the riparian. And maybe we can touch about something you said about the professionals going on the roads to
join the people who are victims.
Yes.
The professionals are also victims.
Yes, professionals. Yes.
Our design did not work.
Okay. Yes, maybe.
What do you think?
Okay, there's a quote that says, "The river never forgets its path." And of course, now the river has reminded us the paths that it flows. But remember, engineering has also solved such much bigger problems when it comes to water. So maybe for us, solution is not to kick people out, because will you kick people out of the entire city? No. You'd find a solution around it instead of demolishing buildings. So for us, I think as professionals, we have to really think deeper than our normal solutions.
That's brilliant, because if the water is causing problems, if it's above ground, then why don't you make it go below ground? Maybe to some storage.
Example,
that's an engineering solution. Why can't the house rise as it floods? Why can't the house rise? I mean, it should not be a flood. Okay, do fish experience floods?
No.
So why don't we borrow ideas and do some biophilic design? Because the fish allows the water to pass through the gills. So we can design buildings that can coexist. I think Frank Lloyd designed one. What is it called?
Falling waters.
Falling waters. Falling waters.
First, on our drainage, maybe to try and defend
Our drainage or our evaporation. You need to be clear.
our evaporation mechanism.
Because the drainage system is not there.
Yeah, maybe the evaporation was sought as an alternative since Nairobi doesn't experience a lot of rain, and maybe this flooding is an effect of maybe climate change. Can that be the effect?
There was an article that came out.
Yes.
There was an article that came out back in the early 1900s where this guy had mentioned that this area has a very big problem, and the problem is the flooding. When they're doing the railway, there's a very big problem of flooding. So this is 100 years later, surely.
So we are experiencing a 100-year problem.
Yes.
It's a problem that was first diagnosed 100 years ago, but never solved.
Yes.
So how do we blame climate change for a problem that's 100 years old? Because the climate has always been changing anyway.
And it's cyclic also. It can come after every 30 years, a natural disaster that comes every 30 years. So you anticipate the next one to be larger.
And again, also the earth is an inhabitable place. Even your own house is very inhabitable. So you can do let's look at a thought experiment. Wake up in the middle of the night, leave all the windows open, and just it's your house. How habitable is it?
You will not live there.
So if your own house is not habitable, surely we cannot blame the weather, isn't it?
Yeah.
We cannot blame the climate. And again, even if the climate should change, there are two approaches. Do we blame the climate, or do we take up the role of problem solvers?
Problem solvers. Because you have to adapt.
We have to adapt.
We have to think about nature-based solution, trying to include nature into our design.
So earlier we said that we don't have quality problems. Like flooding is not really a quality problem, isn't it? Think about it. Like you literally have two choices. This is good land. This is riparian land. You build on the place that floods. And in another country, they are building dikes. They're building dikes to keep the sea away, which is a better engineering problem. Building on the riparian or building dikes, which is a better engineering problem.
Well, we've seen we can't run away from riparian. Riparian live. You can't run away from it. And the examples where they've built cities, even on water. Venice, the streets are water. How did they figure that out and to build hundreds of years?
So water is not a problem.
I don't think water is the problem.
Okay.
It's us who refused to work with the water.
So should urban planners design Nairobi as a flood zone?
Yeah.
They should, right?
Yeah. They should consider doing that.
Okay. We hope someone will hear this because now the solution what is the solution on the table? The solution on the table is demolition.
The reason why demolition is being done is actually, according to the zoning guidelines that is still existing, it requires people to stay away 30 meters. That's a solution to help solve before we think about designing with water. So people to stay away 30 meters away from the river. Okay. So the reason why they experience flooding is they were advised. Like, okay, this is not me blaming. Like, there's also the need for there's the issue of the economy that comes in. They are advised to stay away because that area is mapped as a flooding zone. So when you stay there,
I have a good question. Very good question.
Okay.
You see, if you're giving advice, the assumption is that you have a body of knowledge.
Yes.
And from the body of that knowledge and from that authority, then the advice comes out. Okay? Okay, don't leave the food on fire so much. The house will be full of smoke. You speak from a point of knowledge and experience. Could it be that the people who wrote that planning code you are referring to, they had some serious lack of knowledge or shortcomings in their understanding of how to build on riparian lands? Because if the knowledge was abundant when that code was being written, because there is a danger in knowledge, when you look at knowledge, there's a danger of referring to authority. Even when the source of the knowledge is not an authority in anything. It is the only authority they have is because we said so, of course in writing. So should we then revise this planning code to reflect new technologies in construction, like biophilic design, building houses that float on water, letting the river, guiding the river, building dikes, because the solution we are applying is another step in the chain of lack of knowledge. So the initial policy that said don't build on riparian land came out of lack of knowledge. And the actions that are following are also coming out from the same source. Lack of knowledge. Because how is it that there is a house by Frank Lloyd where water is passing through the house and is winning awards?
It was built in 1939.
And it was built in 1939.
I actually feel like niko kwa position ya government. I feel government officials are in nikiwa support that. I think the plans for evicting the people who are staying to the along the riparian is to come up with a planning corridor. That's the whole idea. So I'm just hoping in this planning corridor, they're able to integrate whatever you're saying, their biophilic design, they're able to design with water. So we have to try and advocate for such ideas to be embraced.
So we should change the planning code first. Before we demolish the houses.
The building code.
Because if the first action is ignorance, then the subsequent action can only be out of ignorance. Because if we say, if you tell a child, do not touch fire, do not touch the stove, and then you beat up the child, you haven't improved the knowledge base of the child. You should now maybe talk about Celsius, degrees, and say water boils at this, your hand will burn at this temperature.
But in my opinion, at some point, as much as we want to build with water, we want to try and build alongside the nature. So the best idea of having nature around it is creating public spaces. What if maybe you know how Nairobi River connects a lot of estates? What if we have cycling lane, somebody can cycle all the way from the start of Nairobi River
like
to the end? Because Nairobi River passes through Nairobi CBD. So that will ease. It also is the issue of transport.
I mean, the idea.
So there's plenty of confusion because we are closing one park that is green and saying we demolish these ones. Because those people, are you saying the people who have built on riparian land are not one with nature? They're not enjoying.
What was built?
They're actually enjoying the natural flow of the water.
Is it nice actually? Have you seen Nairobi River recently? It's not something you can enjoy.
And what they built was not for that riverfront. It could not be sustained during the floods.
So it still goes back to a planning problem.
Design
problem.
Yes, it is. I agree. We have a very big urban planning problem. Maybe an idea will be to use the river and try connect the already existing public spaces we have. If you look at Nairobi Museum, it connects with Michuki Park. What if we try to create a green corridor that also connects with Uhuru Park
and respect the path of the water, the natural path of the water.
And Uhuru Park also try and connects with the Nairobi rivers and the Gong.
Of course, when you say Uhuru Park, you should say Uhuru Park without padlocks because it can't connect under lock and key.
I think that talking of parks, that brings us to our very interesting topic about third places, which we had touched on earlier, of maybe considering our designs having maybe a prayer room in between, or to help solve the mental state of.
So the thing is this: so if you're building 5 floors, and on the 5th floor you allow a garden, a rooftop garden, you know what you've done? you've just given yourself the privilege to build 4 more floors, because this mid garden,
GTC has tried that.
yes, this mid garden allows you to now go 8 floors and therefore expand the what we are calling the human scale. But if you ask me from a practical point of view and from looking at people's capacity to own and to build, I wouldn't touch any of these multi-story buildings, because I still insist that we have good spaces back at home or wherever we've bought land. If everyone belongs to a circle, you probably have one plot in Isinya, another one in Kilimambogo, another wherever the circle said we have found good land, please buy. Many people who have a payslip have a piece of land somewhere.
There's a book written by an urban planner. Her name is Jane Jacobs, and she says, "Right to a city." You cannot tell people not to live in the city.
Yeah, you can't.
And it's mostly a trend, and we're hoping the trend comes back around where they find that, living in my nice, fresh air, green space in my upcountry is much better, and then they'll find a way to make a living there. Because some come, what you say, because of the fashion trend. This is where people are. I'm assuming this is where hostels are, schools. But now, I mean, there are hostels and schools in every county. There's you can't really say you're only coming to Nairobi for amenities. So we're hoping.
Okay, the right to the way I understand the right to the city is that your place in the city is determined by your voice. Like right now, we are adding our voices to this city. Even though we may say we don't belong to that city and we do not approve what is happening there. Okay? So your right to the city doesn't come through ownership. It comes through participation.
Okay.
When you say that, do not lock up this public space. I want to wait for my girlfriend in the park. Don't lock it up.
Yeah, that's a good thing you bring about.
Because if we go on the ownership route, many people in this city are like people in Congo. They don't belong. If there's a small problem, we carry our things and we go back to the village.
During Christmas time.
So our place in the city is not determined by ownership. We own nothing in this city. We are having a place in it because as we pass through the city, as we reconnect with our friends, our voices need to be heard. So we are part of the city by participation, not by ownership. Because if we bring ownership, just look at the poverty rate. You know? So now, having said that, I see that if we are to solve our problems, we have started solving our problems from way up there. So when you go and do a research on Japan, and when you look at Japan as a country, first of all, it is space constrained. So it's an island nation. They don't have much land. Now, if you've built a house and it's 200 square meters, those are 4 Japanese houses. Those are 4 Japanese houses. Like those are 4 Japanese houses, each costing 14 million. Because they have a shortage of land and they have abundance of money to build, and they have architects. So what we are doing is we are as part of the state of the industry, that we are over designing houses for people. And these houses are breaking the same people that we are designing for. That is why there are so many options. Because we have burdened the people with this exotic knowledge we call architecture and quantity surveying and all that.
A good topic you bring about is the mental health in cities. We as humans, I think we were designed to either work, to go to work, have a home, and at least have a third place maybe for playing. And a lot of this nowadays, you don't get a chance to have a third places. You have to have money to actually access your third places.
So work,
like work,
play,
and sleep. I think that's Okay. So for play, we don't have a lot of spaces to play. Like Uhuru Park, there are padlocks there. If I'm supposed to, maybe after work, maybe I just need to go somewhere and chill, I have to have money. Just think about how many places you can go for free. For a factor of, at least in Nairobi, Michuki Park, you can go for free. But I can't think anywhere else. Was the Uhuru Park opened? I don't know. Not yet.
Okay. So you don't. What about if you go to Kimathi Street? There are these nice bars where you can sit at the balcony. And
That's
watch
bar.
people.
You have to buy something.
Is that not play?
You have to actually buy something.
It does not qualify as play. So play is where you're not bothered to buy something.
Yes.
Okay.
It's supposed to be free.
So you're saying that if you look at our urban spaces, we are losing the majority of spaces to play.
Yes.
But we are gaining spaces for speeches. Like there's Madaraka Day.
Yes.
There's now a nice place for speeches. So are we trying to balance play and speech? And circus. Of course, there are circuses during those events. So do you think that it's not really a big loss because we are now gaining? We are also what we are losing, we are gaining. And let's take the case of Uhuru Park. So a park is only useful if it is 3 minutes walking distance. Otherwise, the need to go to the park, if the distance is too long, I'm like,
that's a lot.
So what these places actually are available as places of play, or we just gave them great prominence because a celebrity planted trees there. So my point is, should we encourage more private developers to, instead of building a house in the city, why don't you build a park?
In the city.
In the city.
I'm sure they'll ask, okay, so what's in it for me? How much money am I making? What return?
See, the same thing they were complaining.
So they'll charge
Green
you.
spaces.
Yeah, but they'll charge you now for coming into their space. They have to make money. The land value.
So if 150 people are buying land, I think architects should push this idea that at least 10 plots must be green spaces. In the population of 150, you will find 5-10 people persuaded that I don't need to do another 3-bedroom house.
That's true. That can work in a place where you have the virgin land and then you ask for a local area development plan, which means you can suggest. But then if there's nothing that requires a developer to create that green space, yet for him, he only wants to maximize out of all the acres. Remember, most times he doesn't live there. He wants to just build up houses, sell them, and then go elsewhere. So for him, green space, he doesn't see any value.
Who guides the hand of the developer? Is it not the architects?
For sure, and of course regulatory bodies, but they now are not so empowered to restrict that developer.
So there's a gap.
For sure.
Someone has not shown the developer, if you set aside 10 spaces, you will still make money from the other 140 spaces.
Yeah. I saw a side-by-side image of a plan for an estate along Kenyatta Road in Juja and Tilisi.
Okay.
And because Tilisi allowed for the green space and planning and market space, schools, you find that they're able to sell their property at a higher markup compared to where you just dig grid lines and they're selling smaller pieces of plots to people. Now, if you get the developer to understand that I can sell this estate by saying I have a park, the better.
So is it possible, that's a question to both of you, because I'm only able to sketch. So is it possible to draw grid lines and to draw a plan and to put your stamp and your signature, and the conclusion is still that it is not a plan?
It's true. Yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah. Kenya has shown that.
Yeah.
So it's possible.
It's possible.
So a plan is not lines.
No.
And a plan is not. So much of the things that have been approved, we cannot say they are plans.
Because what about the social aspects?
So what we have is urban line work.
But
there is no urban planning.
Oh my God.
We can agree.
Yeah, we can agree. We can agree.
Actually,
if there was planning, there would be no flooding.
Yeah.
Actually, there are plans. I'll keep referring to their plans. Plans are there. There are a lot of consultancy in Nairobi doing a lot of urban plans. Actually, there are a lot of, I can't remember a specific one. Kuna yenye ilikuwa developed 2014, 2018. There's new plan. And trust me, urban planners have such amazing ideas. If you read those plans, everything you're talking about equal. If you talk about an MT, BRT, if you talk about public spaces, is equal. So the question is, how do we get the people? How do we implement? How do we take action? Maybe that's the way forward. How can we get involved?
So my involvement is to run away.
No,
because
think
either you
about
fight the monster,
yeah.
it's fight or flight. So for me, I'm saying, look, if there's abundance of spaces in Western Kenya, and I can drive through Luanda town, and there's this nice kissing canopy. So why am I fighting?
But
Chinese in Kimani?
I hear you though.
Don't you think my response is the logical path for many people?
We have different
because there are more rural areas than one city. There's only one Nairobi.
Yeah.
Actually, there was an article I read online. I'm trying to still find that article again. Someone had proposed how we don't have to have Nairobi as the city to go to.
Yes.
Like, we can potentially move the capital. And they mentioned Isiolo.
Yeah.
Because it has so much
central
potential.
And it's even at the center of Kenya.
Let's move.
So the solution to the urban planning of Nairobi is to cancel it.
No, decentralize activities. Okay, which the current constitution is trying.
Because if an activity is taking more energy to correct than to create an alternative solution, why bother?
But remember, we have different priorities. Kama wewe unaenjoy kwenda kudrive, ukiona the greens, there's somebody who doesn't enjoy that. The reason why I'm saying that is recently I was able kukaa mbele ya Super Metro, and this driver, it was during rains wakati miti ilikuwa imeanguka katikati ya barabara, and this driver kept cursing and this saying like, trees zinafanya nini Nairobi? So when like, why do we
so you're saying we increase urban spaces for the Super Metro drivers?
Those who are happy that
ati zinafanya nini? Ati trees zinafanya nini? Maybe if you want to bring greenery, consider small planters.
Mpande kwa balcony.
So tulipingana kiasi, and it was so hard for me to explain to him why we need trees in cities. At sasa mimi miti inanisaidiaje na gari yangu?
So as a challenge to you as an urban planner, why don't you start working on one potted plant per balcony?
I already have a lot of plans.
Because it aligns with the majority, the voice of the majority, the Super Metro drivers and all the passengers. Those are many voices. I'm sure many people in the bus were not thinking like you. One urban planner in front of the car saying this tree, and the others are saying, no, we don't need trees. So don't you think you should shift the urban planning theory?
Yeah, maybe, but
to smaller spaces.
Yeah, maybe I should do that. But sometimes
would that be giving up?
Sometimes I think I have a lot of knowledge that's not being used, especially planning knowledge. When you walk, I'm very sure this for every urban planner. Interact with any urban plan with a pessimistic, because literally you have a lot of knowledge na hakuna place unaweza peleka. My point is that, as in major point, wanaona they are not thoroughly involved.
Huko Western kuna a lot of places you can take.
Also the bit about urban planning, even if you have the ideas, the land is not yours. It's also very capital intensive, and for you to even implement any kind of urban plan, it's years and years. And then now, the moment you bring an idea, you have created a new problem. Because it never ends.
There's also our system. Our system is meant to change. After 5 years, there's a different government. So the same government ikikuja ikona a whole idea of urban planning. Kama the last government was big on the big four transport. That's where SGR came. This government has affordable housing. So unapata BRT imestall because priorities, different leaders having different.
So what is your last take on this? I think what is your last take? What do you think would be your last word on this?
One take. If you are an urban planner or a built environment profession and you are watching this, kindly stand up, take up spaces. You need to start advocating for urban planning and design. Remember, this is not urban planning work. Also, your work, architect's work, is also being affected. So, that's my take.
My take would be that I think urban planners should begin by changing their title to rural planners. Sababu sasa si urban areas zimewashinda. So I think you have a better chance of applying that knowledge. Because if we don't do that, we will export the mistakes of Nairobi to 47 other places.
Yeah.
So we need more rural planners. You can hide the urban title and then grow with the county until you become an urban planner in 47 places. That's my thought.
My parting shot. Well, I would say urban planning or urban design issues, the things we've discussed, a lot of it normally is not implemented.
Yeah.
So number one, whoever holds the pen or the signature, whoever is in a place where you can implement, including us, please start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed the podcast.
Me too.
Absolutely.